let's start out. You're from Mimico way back?
Mm-hmm. I didn't really start till I was about 12 or 13. I was playing baseball up till then. And I happened to go to the park one day, and there was 4 or 5 guys there with sticks in their hands. And I got to talking to them because I was going to play baseball there. And one of the guys that we were playing baseball with knew the lacrosse guy, so he introduced me, and they actually let me use the stick, which is really unheard of for lacrosse players to let somebody use their stick. And I really liked it. And next thing you know, I was following these guys around. I went to the box, and baseball was long gone after that.
Yeah, you fell in love with the game.
Oh, yeah.
And what was like the first level that you played on a team with?
I think the first year was just I played about a half a year of bantam, and then I played a couple of years midget, and then I played 5 years junior.
Junior, what level of junior was that you played?
It was junior A. First year was Mimico Mountaineers. That was in '68. And the next year, we are Mimico and Alderwood merged to become Lakeshore Maple Leafs, and I played the next 4 years with Lakeshore Maple Leafs.
Did you start getting called up to play with the senior side at any
Well,
point, or how did all this happen?
We really didn't do that too much then, but I remember I got called up when I was like 17 or 18. At that time, they had the Pro League. They had a Pro League in '68, I think it was.
Yes.
And Morley Kellis phoned me up to play for them. They were playing, I think St. Catharines in the league. I think that's where I played. I went and played this one game when I was 17 with all these older fellas. I'd only been playing for a few years, so it was pretty nerve-wracking, but I had fun, and it was just part of the game. It was when I was young and we were just starting to play. Mimico had a junior A team, and they were so good to us little guys. It was unreal, and it just kind of set me for loving the game because of how well the older people treated us. And it was the same thing when I went and played with them. They were great guys and made me feel comfortable.
What were some of the highlights of the team?
The first year I ever played in that Bantam year, our coach was Al Smith. For a kid from Mimico, he was our hero. He played for the junior A team, but he also played for the Toronto Marblers in hockey, and eventually played for the Leafs. So I played with him in that first year in Bantam. My first year junior, Al was our coach again. So that was a big deal. Everybody just loved Al so much. And the next year, the '69 year was a special year because that was the first year that we merged the two teams, Alderwood and Mimico. And it was interesting. I was kind of young, so I didn't really know there was any kind of animosity or anything like that. But it took a while to merge. And I think one of the reasons it went so smoothly is that Clark Pulford became our coach that year. And neither team had anything to do with Clark Pulford. He was somebody that all of a sudden out of left field was going to coach his first year of the Lakeshore Maple Leafs. And he turned out to be a fantastic coach. He played lacrosse when he was young. His brother was Bobby Pulford, who played with the Leafs. And he was a great football coach. He was a high school teacher at Northern Secondary, and he coached football there. So he knew how to coach. And he got us together, and he really got us playing well. But that first year in '69, it was the last year of the Green Gaels, the 7-year stretch. So we didn't get as far as winning the Minto Cup that year. But the next year, I guess Mr. Bishop thought, I better get out of here now. We've won 7 in a row. We're doing pretty good. So we didn't have to play the awesome Green Gaels that had Jim Bishop coaching. And in 1970, we won the Minto Cup with that team, with probably the most skilled team I ever played on. But we were raw talent, and it took a while for us to realize that we had as good a team as we did, I think.
On that 70 team, who were some of the names that people might be familiar with?
Paul Suggett, who was probably one of the best athletes I ever played with. He was a raw talent in early years. He could run like the wind, run like a deer, but his shot net hadn't come around. And boy, after that, he became a hell of a player. Billy Coghill, and he was a great centerman, awesome player. Charlie Henderson, I think he ended up in top 5 in scoring in that 70 year. We had good goaltending, Rick Palin, Pat Kelly. It was just an all-around balanced team We had Joe Timpson, Wayne Granger, Derek Forbes. It was fun. Danny Moher, real good friend of mine. We played in a series against Larry Smeltzer in the Brampton. I can't remember if it was Brampton or Bramley they were called.
Yeah.
In that year, in the 70 playoffs, they were leading the series in 3-1 after 4 games. The 5th game was at home. We were down 9-2 after the 2nd period against Larry Smeltzer, who was probably the best I ever played with or played against, goaltender. We ended up winning the game 10-9. We outscored them 8-0 in the last period. And we went on from there to we won the next 2 games without any problems. We got in the first game of the Minto Cup against Burnaby, Cablevision. I think the first period score was 13-3. So it was all over after the first period of the first game of the series, and we ended up winning 4 straight.
Wow.
But it was a great team, really good team, fast team.
Well, you went through junior, and then you stepped up to senior or major. Like, when did that happen?
The next year I played 71, 72. I was still playing junior. In 73, they had a league, I don't know what it's called, just a senior A league, and it was Toronto Shooting Stars. And I played in Varsity Arena. And that was interesting. We, before the game was televised by CHCH TV in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And the announcer was Norm Marshall. I don't know if you remember that name.
I do.
Okay, so before the game, the television guys would come out and get everybody to sit on one side of the rink because they wanted to have some people, because that's where the cameras were facing. So there was only families and friends that were at the games kind of thing, but that was pretty funny. But that was a good team and a really good coach. Red Crawford was our coach, and he was a fun guy. He's in the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure.
What teams were you with before you came out here, I guess?
Well, the next 2 years, it was the pro league that we had, the NLL.
And you went
I
and
went
played?
in 74, Jim Bishop drafted me, so I played with the Toronto Tomahawks. And then our team went from Toronto to Boston the next year.
Oh, you went to Boston in 75?
Yeah, we played in 75. But it was interesting. We were talking about Jack Beyond. Before I played in that, or got drafted by Mr. Bishop in 74, there was a tryout for a field lacrosse team. And I remember it must have been early or late fall or something like that, because there was snow on the ground, or early spring or whatever. And we went to this field that was out in Oshawa somewhere. And Bishop wanted to show us how we could use these field sticks and not the big box sticks.
Yeah.
So he got us standing in a circle, and he got Jack Bionda to go in the middle of the circle with a field stick and a lacrosse ball, and stood there and went like this with the ball. And all of us were giving it this action, and we couldn't believe it, because I couldn't even catch with a field stick when I had eventually played field lacrosse. It was pretty impressive. Anyways, we played a game in Wayne State University with an AstroTurf field, practice field, and I guess he liked what I did, so he drafted me. And so it was quite an experience playing for Jim Bishop that year. It was Maple Leaf Gardens. It was always, when I was a kid, it was always you wanted to play Maple Leaf Gardens, but it was because of hockey, because the Maple Leafs had won 4 Stanley Cups, in the 60s. Anyways, I never did get to play a game of hockey, but I got to play a full season of lacrosse here, so that was.
Did they have any games where they drew really well or anything?
It didn't. It was televised too in that year in Toronto, and it was too bad. It's just the way it was back then. It was, but they were figuring it out over the years. Like, we were the guinea pigs, because we were playing like, we were going to the cities that we were drafted in, and you're staying there, so they had to pay us more, kind of thing, and the games were in the summertime, of course, and a lot of people, they like to do other stuff in the summertime rather than sit inside. But it progressed after that to this pro league that they've got now, and I think we were the guinea pigs for that, and I think they've figured it out, and it's done okay now.
What was it like playing in Boston?
Boston was fantastic. We had, it was a great city for one thing. We were playing in the Boston Garden. It had a parquet floor that they brought out, threw down, so it was just a really neat experience. But I can remember one of the first times we ever walked into the rink. We were standing there, and along comes a Boston policeman, and he's got a German Shepherd, and he was kind of just going through the stands, and he says, "What are you guys doing here?" And he says, "Oh, we're playing lacrosse here in the summertime." He looked at us and shook his head. He said, "Even the rats are smart enough to get out of the garden in the summertime." Man, and it was crazy because in the Boston Garden, it wasn't air cooled, it wasn't air conditioned. So it'd be like 90 degrees outside and it'd be 100 degrees inside. It was just, but you just loved it. You'd finish a game, it was like you'd been standing underneath a shower for 20 minutes. You were just drenched, but it was great. We just loved it. It was a great, I mean, the lifestyle that you had, you're playing a game that you love. We weren't making a lot of money, but it was enough for a summer job kind of thing. So, yeah, it was special.
And did they ever put in decent crowds there?
You know, they probably had a steady only about 2,000 or 2,500, but they were ardent. The problem with Boston was that it's a huge university and college town.
Yeah. So
if it had been done in the wintertime, we might have got better crowds, but in the summertime, they all went home.
Yes.
Kind of thing. But the ones that we had were ardent. I remember there was one section, and they had T-shirts made up, or not a section, made up a bunch of guys, might be 8 or 9, 10 guys, but whatever it was. They had a T-shirt that had TNS on the front, and section 34 or whatever the section was. Can you guess what it means?
I wouldn't want to hazard.
Well, they loved the physicality of the game, right? So anything went on, they'd stand up and start yelling, "Take no shit, take no shit."
So that's what the TNS was.
That was the TNS. Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. So you got to play that pro league, and how did the season go in Boston that year for you guys?
It was a good year, but we lost in the first round of the playoffs. Unfortunately, we lost it. And when Bishop stayed with Toronto that first year, and he left, but he went to Montreal. So we actually played Bishop's team and lost against Montreal that series. Yeah. And that was tough. We wanted to beat him, but you know what? I mean, between him and Morley Kells, they did more for the game to get the game to a level that became so popular, the fast break, and he was special.
Yeah. And you mentioned Bionda before. Like, how much interaction did you have with him? Just the one time?
Yeah, it was basically the one time. He actually came out to Victoria one time, and in '82, Brian Thompson, who was a Huntsville boy, same as Jack, he actually got Bionda to come out and sign with. It's 1982. I don't know how old he was, but he was pretty old. And just to play the power play. And he only played a couple of games left. So I met him a couple of times then. Yeah.
Really? And when did you come out to Victoria?
I came out in '76. So the Pro League went '74, '75, and in early or late winter of '76, I guess. It was announced that the league was folding because Montreal, they used the Montreal Forum for the Montreal team. In '76, it was the Olympics.
Yes.
And they decided that they couldn't get it, so they decided to, temporarily fold the league. Well, it folded for good kind of thing.
I'd heard that from other players. The Olympics had a lot to do with that.
And that was a crushing blow, I think,
For things, okay.
Yeah. When I came to Victoria, Nirmal was a coach. Okay.
Yeah, that was
He was my first coach in Victoria, and we'd gone through the preseason, and we're standing there, and we were giving out numbers, and he looks at me, he goes, "What number you want?" I said, "Doesn't matter to me." He says, "Wear 6, it's a good number." He wore it for 11 years. I wore it for 10, and this John Hamilton wore it for another 10 after me.
Wow.
So over 30 years, there was only 3 guys that wore that number.
Nice.
How are you doing? You want the back now?
Sure. Pay less gas.
Real good buddy, Joe McRae, and I, when we went to Boston, that was the first year that Ivan Thompson, Chris Hall, that we met Ivan Thompson and Chris Hall, who both lived out here.
Yeah.
And another player on our team, Jack Castelline, he played out here too. So when that league folded, Joe and I decided, well, what are we going to do? And we both played on Ivan's line, and if you've heard anybody talk about Ivan, it's special.
Yeah.
So anyways, we decided that we were going to go out west. And we started off, we were going to go to another team because we'd heard Victoria didn't want players. So this Jack Castline phoned me out of the blue in Toronto and says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I think I'm going to this. I think Joe and I are going to go out to. I don't want to name the team because I feel bad because I told the guy we're going to go out, but I didn't know Victoria wanted to play us. Anyways, he says, "Well, wait a sec, I'll phone you back." And he phoned me back. He says, "Victoria wants you guys." So we came out. And I always remember the first time I came out, they picked me up at the airport and went to the Snug in Oak Bay. And we sat and had a beer. So he said, "What kind of beer you want?" I said, so I looked at the guy, and apparently this waiter had been there for 30 years. I said, I'll have an X. And the other two guys look at me. There's Chris Randall, who's the president of the team, and Jack. Jack started laughing because he knew. And the waiter looked at me and says, "What's an X?" I said, "Export ale." He goes, "We don't have that here." I thought, oh my God, I've dropped off the edge of the earth. What's going on? I was raised on export. Anyways, it was.
What did you have?
Oh, I can't even remember now. Probably. I didn't have old style. I know that. But yeah, and then it was, playing Victoria was unbelievable. And then Joe and I were back playing at Ivan's Line again, which was phenomenal as usual. But that arena, of all the rinks I played in, it was just the perfect rink for lacrosse. It was just the old Memorial Arena. Yeah. It had great lighting, great floor, and it just had a setup where you had one tier and then a mezzanine kind of walk around and then another tier up above. And it was just the perfect venue. And it was there was more people in those games that were ever in any game that I played when I was in junior or wherever, not the Pro League, because there was some teams that did fairly well in that. But it was special. And I always tell people I came out to play 1 year and I played 10, and I never went home. And that's the truth. Yeah.
So what you said the floor, like what made the floor special?
Well, I'd played on the floor in the 1 year in Central Arena with it had an asphalt floor and I mean there was tire treads and mark on the floor and that. But this was it was a nice shiny type of concrete floor. Yeah. And it was just an awesome building. It was really special. Anybody that's ever played lacrosse or hockey would have said the same thing. And you get the great smell of the hot dogs and the onions. That was renowned. When you walked in there, you could smell it. But, yeah.
So you played against a lot of guys and played with a lot of guys. Like guys you played with, name a couple of the guys that stood out. Like obviously Ian.
Well, the players I mentioned from Lakeshore for sure, because like I say, they were of all the teams I played with, it was probably the most talented team, and for various reasons, for defensive toughness, scoring ability, and they just some great players. And I mean, I grew up watching the Green Gaels when they were on their run kind of thing, and they were pretty special with Polish and Jim Higgs. I don't think I ever played against a player who could control a game like this Jim Higgs. He just could slow the game down, and he was just a great player. And I remember watching Ivan when he was playing for Huntsville. There were so many players that left Huntsville and played for the Oshawa Green Gaels, his brother Brian, and there was a few other guys, but Ivan didn't. He stayed in Huntsville.
Huh. Yeah, I know Jim Bishop started things up in Huntsville. He was a big part of what got that going.
Yeah. But he recruited a lot of different players. Chucky Lee, who was an awesome player, and we played together in Toronto and in Boston, and he was one of my favorite teammates. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, Chucky. Okay.
Yeah. He used to carry a stick like this, which wasn't very good when a guy's swatting at you to hit your stick. You usually got knocked in the face somewhere. Most guys would carry the stick here kind of thing, but not Chucky. He was like this. But
do you remember a play that, more than any other that sticks in your mind?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is when in the '83 season, and I think we were in double overtime to New Westminster, and Jimmy Meredith scored to put us into I don't know if that was a Mann Cup, Mann Cup, or it was the first. I think it was into the Mann Cup, but that was a special goal, and he had this shot where he kind of twisted his stick, and they were going to give him heck. It was like he almost didn't care. He looked like he was just giving it this action, but it was a shot, and he put it in the top corner. And he was a great player too. He's a Hall of Famer.
And
A Huntsville boy too.
really, huh?
Yeah.
Who hit you the hardest?
Well, I can remember twice I got hit. One was really a dirty shot, and it was varsity arena, and I remember because I had to sit out. It was half because the senior B team had my rights, but I wanted to play senior A, so I went and played this game. I wasn't in great shape, and the guy gave me a slew foot, which you don't see too much in lacrosse. Anyways, I went down. I remember going off the floor and up and down the hallway because my hip was just killing me. I didn't realize till after the game I took my pads off and I'd split my elbow wide. I had to go for stitches on that. 20 years later, I played another 15 years of lacrosse. 20 years later, I started having problems with my hip. This hip's fine. I ended up having a hip replacement on this hip, and that was I know it was directly from that arthritis set in over the years. And I got hit once pretty hard in I guess it was Kerrisdale Arena. The guy clocked me pretty good there. But you got to bounce right back
Gotta
up.
get up.
Oh, yeah. That Al Smith taught us that. You don't let anybody know you're hurt. You just bounce right back up.
And when you started coming out to Victoria, did you stay the whole year, or did you go back for some of it?
No,
or?
I stayed. When I came out, like I say, with my buddy Joe, and I stayed the whole time. Joe went back after a couple of years, and then he got married and moved to Nanaimo. And he stayed up in Nanaimo for a while before he went back too. But yeah, it's like pretty hard to go back. I mean, I love Toronto, and I love growing up in Toronto. I love everything about Mimico and lacrosse, but Victoria's a pretty special place for every reason. You know, not just lacrosse, but meeting my wife for one thing, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. I was thinking back to Mimico days, and obviously the Shanahans went through there. And you have any Shanahan stories at all?
Well, I know Brian. Well, Brian's boy is a goaltender up in Nanaimo right now, and has the last couple of years. Brendan had a celebrity game, and I think it was 99, 98 or 99. So I was already going back to visit my mother with my family, and so he asked me, or Dan, his brother, asked me if you want to play. I said sure. So I went. It was really something. It was at the Mimico Bowl, which finally had a roof on it. We played all those years without a roof, but anyways, so we had a celebrity game. Joe Newendike was the coach on one side, and Brendan was on the other side. And, yeah, Brendan played.
It must have been a special day.
Yeah, it was.
With that group.
They had some hockey players, and you know.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And did you play any other sports as well? You know, you played baseball for a while. You mentioned.
Yeah, and that was.
You left that far behind.
Well,
pretty quickly.
You know, you go to Canadian Tire to get a baseball glove. You could jump in Normie Gare, who was a Hall of Fame builder's car, to drive an hour and a half to go see Chief Joe Logan to pick out a stick. I mean, there wasn't any comparison, right?
Six Nations.
Six Nations, yeah. Oshawa, yeah.
Yeah, and go get your stick there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was pretty special too. And they you'd go into his shed, and he'd have the different stages where he'd shave it down till finally he had the stick, and the stick would be there, and he had the piece of newspaper jammed down here, and Mrs. Logan did all the leather and the catgut, and she wouldn't do anybody else's. She wouldn't do anybody else's stick. It had to be a Logan for her to do that. Because my dad, unbeknownst to me, drove up there to get a new catgut on my stick one time.
Oh.
So that was pretty special.
Yeah, there's no game with the history and culture of this game because of the first.
But I was just reading a little bit about Mimico. Like Mimico started in the 1890s, their lacrosse club, and that was all field lacrosse.
Yes.
They were the 1932 Mann Cup champion, 1942 Mann Cup champion, I think it was 37 Minto Cup and 51 Minto Cup. 51 was a good year. I was born then. The Leafs won and Mimico and the Minto Cup that year. I was laughing with the guys at golf. I said, there's three things I do right now. I watch the Leafs, I go to the gym, and I play golf. And I said, all three of those things contain pain. And I know I got to get something that I got to do that I enjoy.
we got a few more minutes. Like, anything you want to talk about? Any person? Anything about the game? You know, you get one opportunity to do this, right? So,
well, I think
tell whatever you
I
want.
think I overheard Ranji and Norm talk about Doug Fletcher, and this Norm Gare was special. He was like, there was only 4 people really that kind of ran the organization, and that was through all the teams. It was always Normie's car. It was one of the cars that went to an away game, and he was just, you know, you just loved the fella, because you just knew he just really cared about the game of sport, and he cared about you guys that were starting to play it, and took care of you. And it was one of those too where if you went to get sticks, the one guy didn't have money, then Norm would say it's okay. But his brother is in the Hall of Fame too as a player, and his nephew Graham Gare was one of the best lacrosse players I ever saw. Unfortunately, he played junior and became a doctor, and so he didn't really play that much after. Although he did come out and play, I think, 1 year in the Pro League, but he was a special player. And that was another thing I was going to mention. When the years that Oshawa Green Gaels had the great team, Mimico had a really good team. And they actually beat the Green Gaels when nobody was beating them in Oshawa, 8-5. And that was always a big deal for us young guys.
Yeah,
It was huge.
They were the gold standard at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did so much to advance the game. I remember when I first started playing, or first started watching, I couldn't believe it. And nothing wrong with the evolution of the game, because back then, when the ball went into the corner, if the defensive team got it, the offensive team just walked back down to their end and waited for him to come down. I couldn't, as much as these guys were skilled players, I thought, why would they let the guy walk all the way down the floor of the ball? Why don't they go check him, kind of thing? So then I started playing, and then the fast break started. Well, the fast break, you wanted to contain the fast break. Well, the way you do that, you get the loose ball before it gets going, kind of thing. You want it, so that was part of my game, was doing that, working hard on the forecheck and whatever. And then of course Kells took it and Morley Kells took it to another level where they started, when you head to the bench, the guy would go out the other door by about 6 feet this way, 8 feet that way, and so there's no way you're going to catch the guy. He's got half the floor on you. But that got kind of dwindled down, and then they put the box on the outside, so you had to be inside that box before you could take off and that.
And when did the clock come in while you were playing? Yeah.
Actually, the clock came in when we were playing junior, and our coach Clark Pulford, like I said, he actually devised the play. And this is how the game evolves again. If we're getting close to 30-second clock, there's Joe Timpson on our team. He'd go to one side, I'd go to the other side of the floor, and he'd shoot it, but to hit the backboard to ricochet out to me.
Wow.
And that was a set play.
Yeah.
Because I remember Clark saying years ago after, he said, "You remember that play?" I go, "Yeah, I did." He says, "Yeah, they took that away on us, didn't they?" I said, "Yeah."
After you pay a few times.
Yeah,
right?
After that, you had to hit the goalie. You had to hit the net.
Anything else you want to talk about? Any aspect of the game, or your part of the game, or?
I worked hard. Let's put it that way. I was fortunate to play on. I knew how to run a fast break. I knew how to get down the floor. I knew how to press a guy, and I knew when to press a guy. And
you were pressure.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. And it was.
Yeah.
I just thought that it fit my game kind of thing to do that, because I was in pretty good shape and I could run, and I learned over years how to. I'm not going to be able to knock over the biggest guy in the rink, but might be able to, corner him off, get an angle on him kind of thing. So I was usually the first guy up.
You make use of your strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there was guys like Kevy Alexander, who was fantastic with his stick, and if you get caught looking at a stick, you were done for. But you kind of learned that after a while too. You didn't give up on him. You had to keep chasing him while he was giving it this, and he was a fantastic player. Yeah. Unbelievable shot. He just worked so hard at his game. He was one of the few guys in all the years I played that didn't have. Everybody has their game stick.
Yeah.
And then they have their other stick, their backup stick. And the backup stick usually had a piece of fiberglass down here, and it was one you didn't want to ever use, where Kevy had a couple of sticks and they were in perfect condition. and he carried a little bag that had a kit that anything went wrong, they could fix it.
It's like a pool.
Yeah, I was always impressed with that.
He's like a pool shark, huh?
Yeah, he was really dedicated,
Yeah.
professional.
Wow.